That's nice.
Evening all. We're just going to let the bar queue go down, so just a couple of minutes and we'll get started. Right, we'll get going, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everyone at home as well. Expecting hundreds watching live on YouTube tonight. I'm sure many of you already know the format, how we do these things. The first 45 minutes is the pre-submitted questions. Thank you to everybody who helped us with that. And then we'll have a brief interval, and then we'll have some questions from the floor. Second half of the evening. There's loads to get through, so I'll stop babbling on. The first set of subjects we're going to be discussing club finances and recruitment. So we'll be talking about sustainability of the club, playing budget, squad depth and the overseas market. Just to introduce the panel, as if they needed any introduction, got our Chief Executive, Joe Palmer, Head Coach Luke Williams, of course, and our Director, Richard Montague. First question is for Joe, and it comes from John Chambers. Whilst more than grateful for our owners saving the club and the excellent running of matters since then, I have concerns about the amount of debt to them accumulating, as seen on returns to company's house. What reassurances can be given that our beloved club won't once more be at risk in the future, Joe?
Well, firstly, good evening, everyone, and it's nice to see you here this evening. Looking forward to my first fans forum. Ultimately, my response to that question is, yeah, I agree. You know, obviously I don't want to see the debt growing on this club, and I don't think any of you do. Knowing where this club's been over the past sort of 10 years or so, and the debt that's accrued and the problems that it's had, we don't want to go back there. So for us, one of the main things is about sustainability. It's a really key part of where we want to go now, reducing the reliance on owner funding. So that's where we're looking to go. And actually, from the modelling we've done, potentially from next year, we could start to look almost, sustainable. And that's really a model that's very important that we're looking to communicate across to all the staff internally. But it obviously works both ways. So it's what we can do here. We've got cost controls, but we have got to push things hard on a revenue point of view. And we need everyone to buy into that sort of philosophy. And that might mean, certain things like a ticket might go up by £1 or this and that, but that gives us that opportunity to become a sustainable club, but with a budget that is actually still competitive. And that's what's really important, that we can find that balance, because ultimately you've kind of got three models in football. You've got the model where you rely on owner funding, they spend lots to get performance and be competitive, but they accrue debt every single season and gets to a point where that becomes unsustainable. Or you have a model where you don't push things that hard, and you maybe have a smaller budget to stay sustainable, but you won't have necessarily the performances or be competitive. And then you've got the other one where we're all working in the same way, and that's pushing everything as hard as we can off the pitch to have as competitive a budget as we can. So I think we'd all like to get towards the latter, and that's what we're going to try and do. Sustainability is a really key thing in terms of the club strategy going forward.
And you alluded to it there, Joe, but it's not actually a too distant a prospect, in your opinion, from what you've seen so far?
No, I think next year we'll be getting very close to that, and potentially the year after that. I'd be very disappointed if we weren't. So I'm very excited about that prospect, because there are very few clubs that do achieve both performance and have a competitive budget, but also are sustainable.
Thank you. Okay, Rich. Martin DeBell asks, given the much higher attendances this season, surely ahead of what was budgeted for, can that extra money be used to strengthen the squad in January?
Well, it's not my money. But yeah, I think the first thing to say here is that when we did the budgeting ahead of this season, we had anticipated that crowds would be higher than they were last year, so we were hopeful that they would be increasing. I think it's fair to say that it's exceeded our expectations. The support has been unbelievable. In fact, this is the fourth season, obviously, since Chris and Alex took over, and the time I've been here, and the crowds have gone up steadily every season, apart from the obvious behind closed doors season. I was thinking earlier back to a home game with Boreham Wood in November 2019 or something like that, with maybe 3,000 people through the gate on a Tuesday night, which would be unheard of now for a league game. So I think it's amazing how far we've come in 3 years. I think whilst we've obviously done very well in terms of the attendances being higher and the revenue being higher than we projected, the way that the owners and myself like to make decisions about recruitment is basically about constantly looking to improve our chances of getting promotion and being successful. So if we believe that there is an opportunity for us, there's a value opportunity for us to get significantly better and improve our chances of promotion by a significant percentage, then we'll make that investment. And that's been fairly consistent. I think everyone would agree over the past 3 or 4 years we've tried to act when we believe we have a significant opportunity to increase our chance of promotion. Obviously we're in a position now, we're in a very strong position, so we are looking like we'll be able to strengthen in January and make some moves in the market, and that's really based around increasing that chance of promotion always. I think it's also fair to say that if we were 13th and we had maybe a 2% chance of relegation and a 2% chance of promotion, then we would think it would be less, there'd be less value in making moves in the market in that kind of situation. But that's not where we are at the moment. So yeah, I think it's fair to say we're definitely looking to strengthen the squad and improve for the second half of the season for sure.
Just to embellish on that a little bit, how much of your day at the minute, your average day, has been taken up on the January transfer window, would you say?
23 hours or something like that.
Do you enjoy it though?
Yeah, it's very exciting. It's a different challenge to before. Obviously, when we were in the National League, we had a window that went up until March, and then now there's these different time constraints and a whole different set of challenges. But it's been brilliant. It's what we wanted, right? It's what we were working for 3 years. So to actually get that opportunity to operate in the EFL has been great for us.
I'm going to get Luke's thoughts on the way that our recruitment process works in a minute, but first I want to put Adrian Hennigan's question to you, Luke. Do we need more height and physicality in the squad, or is this old school thinking?
No, I don't think it's old school at all. I think that there's no substitute for quality. I think Dan Crowley's probably proof of that. I think he's probably our smallest player. I think without him, we wouldn't have the same feel to the team. I don't think Aaron's going to help us too much in the air, but I think Aaron's been exceptional. But yeah, we also need in there some brawn, because the game gets very raw at a certain point. You can't avoid that. As much as we try to control the game, you have to defend a throw-in into the box, you have to defend a cross. So we're always looking for like that powerful athlete that can play football as well. Problem is everyone else is looking at them. So they're harder to come by, because if you have the really top physical attributes, you appeal to a lot of clubs, and if you add to that quality as well, then you appeal to every single club. So yeah, I understand the question entirely. I think we have to be also careful what we wish for, because I think, like I say, I think guys like Dan Crowley are incredible, and I think they're a joy to watch, and I think that level of quality is even harder to find than brawn.
Rich, just to pick up on that, would you say that physical attributes are one of the key sort of indicators that you guys look for from the recruitment side? Is it something that you're actually sort of targeting, or is it part of like a wider package, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely part of the package for sure. I think obviously in certain positions it's far more important than others. But yeah, it's absolutely something we take into account and try and weigh up alongside other attributes. It's how you weight those attributes that's important. It's how you decide what's important. And I think what I try and do, and what the team at Football Radar try and do, is absorb as much of what Luke's doing as possible, to try and make sure that the players that we provide and we talk about, and the ones that we bring to the club, most match up and marry up with what he's trying to do on the pitch. And we speak every day, speak to Ryan every day, and we try and remain constantly in touch so that we're in tune with each other and we understand what each other are looking for and what we're doing and what they're doing. So that's the way we try and work to make sure that we tick all those boxes, so we don't end up with imbalances all over the place and a team that doesn't have any size in it. Loads of guys that look like me, basically.
Yeah, we'll get some more of Luke's thoughts on that in a second, but Rich, we'll stay with you for now. Josh Brown has asked, do you feel the small squad we have gone with this season was a little too thin on the ground, and would you consider a bigger squad next season? Granted, we've had some season-ending injuries, but personally, I think this will put a big dent in our promotion challenge.
This is size. Yeah, not height. Yes, understood. Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing to say here is, with the benefit of hindsight, if we'd have known that Matty Palmer was going to tear his ACL, then we would definitely have brought in another player. And right now, I wish we had another player who could replace Matty. But I think that there's a bigger point here, that Matty is essentially irreplaceable to us. I think anybody in the league would be missing Matty now, and yeah, we're all hoping that his recovery is straightforward and he's back with us as soon as possible. I think the best thing I can do is try and explain some of the thought process, I guess, that we went through when trying to put the squad together. Because what you're trying to do in the summer or in January is you're trying to almost make predictions about what's going to happen over the next 6 months, who's going to be available, who you might need, what circumstances could change and affect your thinking. There's a few things that went into that. The first thing is that we did have to look, in the case of someone like Matty, we had to look at Matty's past injury history and take into account the fact that I think he's been here 2 years, 2.5 years now. He'd missed one game through injury, which was, I think, due to COVID against Solihull maybe 2 years ago. Didn't miss a single game through injury for Luke. barely missed a session. So we were making the prediction or the judgment that Matty would be available pretty much every week. He never needed to be substituted. He could play Saturday, Tuesday. He was incredibly robust and is still incredibly robust. So we made a judgment really that Matty, we could almost pencil in and say Matty's going to be available. When that doesn't happen, obviously you look very silly. But the other things that feed into that decision making are the desire from our side and from Luke's side to have a small squad, a fairly tight group of players who are all completely bought into what the manager's doing. I think Luke works with, and this is much better coming from you, I think, Luke, but you work with a level of intensity, don't you?
I think you know, the idea of having a Matty Palmer sitting on the bench waiting for Matty Palmer to get injured is like, you're talking about top end, because that guy has got to be paid a salary that not only is competitive for the level, but you've got to pay him compensation, because you're saying to that guy, you're as good as Matty Palmer, which means you're an outstanding League Two player, but you're not going to play. You're there for 1 in 4 games you might play, and then maybe if Matty gets an injury longer term, you might have a run of games. If you look at, or you speak to people involved at Wrexham at the moment, they'll tell you that there's a lot of very content players, because in order for you to have backup on top of backup on top of backup, you have to pay a lot of money for those people to be. That's just not, and that does make the club extremely vulnerable. But then when you look at it deeper, okay, yeah, Matty is irreplaceable, but we have Bajrami to play minutes in midfield, because he showed that he can play at the back and he can play in the middle. So then you have more routes for him to be in a team, and you can try and help him to feel a part of it, and you can keep him playing games regularly, picking up minutes so that so that he doesn't lose his edge. He gets a season-long injury. So you have Johnny Bostock. Johnny's pretty robust, but he will pick up an injury. Jim is incredible, but Jim is not a baby anymore. Sorry if you're watching Jim, he's not a baby anymore. He's just amazing. But to expect Jim and John to then just play every single minute, then it starts to become difficult. Sam Austin has jumped in there and started to pick up a few minutes. But to begin the season, like, what happens if we lose Matty, get another Matty, and then we might lose Badge, get another Badge? Now we have 6 players to play in 2 positions. 2 of them every week, they're coming in my office and I say, I'm really sorry, but you're not in the squad, because I have 2 on the bench, midfield players. Now I need a striker, a couple of defenders, a goalkeeper. So you're out the squad. Yeah, they're professionals. They take it, they'll accept it. 1 week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, they didn't kick a ball in the game. And these are like competitive guys, you know. These are guys that they're not here to like, okay, I made millions of pounds and I'm just happy I'm still in the game. These are guys that they come and knock on a gaffer. I need to play because my career, and I need to play because I need to make sure that if I don't get a new contract, I get a contract somewhere else because I played football. It's just unfeasible to have 3 Matty Palmers, 2 Bajramis. We'll have another Jim. Okay, we'll have another Macca, and then 1 in case Kedwin gets in. We have 2 Kedwin. Now you're talking about a 50-man squad. I don't even know how I make training. I don't know how to make training. So I want guys that are like ferocious, that are looking at the guy that's playing and thinking, okay, 1 bad game, 1 slip up, I'm there. I'm going to take your place with respect. We're competing against each other, but I'm fighting for my place. I don't want guys that are like, well, if he gets injured, he's in, then him, then me. Because before you know it, you have a few guys like this that feel detached, then training is not as good, then you lose a game, and suddenly people are saying, well, I'm not even included, I don't get near it. It's just human nature. It's not because they're bad people, but we don't have that. We have a really, really tough, like, compete against each other, but they respect each other. They're this far from the pitch all the time. Yeah, they can get frustrated if they don't play for 1 game or 2 games, but then they're going to be there. And then 1 injury, you're in and you have to be ready to play a run of games. So, yeah, hindsight is a perfect science. It's beautiful. And, you know, we're all unbelievable in hindsight, but we have to make this balancing act, and we have to measure up all the things that Richard was talking about, the players' previous history, how likely they are to sustain a long-term injury. Matty never had one in his whole career. So, yeah, okay, now I feel silly, but You know, this is all the thinking that goes into it to help you to understand why we don't have lots and lots of backup upon backup upon backup.
The other thing is around the cost as well, which is the boring answer, but part of the reason we've been able to get David McGoldrick here, Jody Jones here, Dan Crowley here, and some of give Macaulay Langstaff a new contract is that all came out of the playing budget. So we made the choice, I think, to go with the smaller numbers, but try and get as high quality as we can on the pitch at all times. So we've got a strong squad. I don't think we have too many filler players, guys who aren't deserving of minutes. So that was a conscious choice by us to try and get small in numbers but high in quality. And I think if it goes wrong, I mean, you have 5-6 injuries, then as Luke says, you can look a bit silly. But that was a conscious sort of decision made by myself, the owners, Luke, Ryan, to go in that direction. So yeah, it's unfortunate the way it's worked out, but we also had a list of contingencies ready to go. We were able to bring Dan Gosling in on quite short notice, and we were prepared for that eventuality as much as we wished it wouldn't have happened. So that's just to try and explain a little bit about the context of why we went with the squad size we did.
Yeah, Rich, you mentioned there the cost element to the squad depth debate.
Yeah.
Are you able to give any context? I know you won't be able to go into specifics, but around how our budget overall would compare with other teams in League Two, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that Sky made a thing of it in their commentary on Saturday, but we've got on fairly good information that we're sort of high mid-table for playing budget this year, which was a surprise to us going into the season.
What did Sky say?
I think Sky said 10th. Who knows? But I think going into the season, or maybe last season when we were projecting forward, we didn't actually expect League Two to be quite so strong this year in terms of the budgets. I think there's a lot of teams spending a lot of money, and that's not to say that we're not. We're competitive for the level, but I think if we're able to show that context and show where we stand amongst other teams, you can see that we're trying to get the maximum value out of every single signing, out of every single player that we have, and trying to sweat that budget as much as possible. So yeah, that's where we think we stand currently.
Great, thanks, Rich. Luke, Sam Watson asks, how have you had to adapt your managerial approach to recruitment with not being as involved as you perhaps were previously? Do you and the board stay in constant contact over new recruits, or do you trust in their methods?
I think the difference really has been that I've sat in the evenings and watched like 5 games, pretty much one after the other, trying to fast forward through the bits that are not relevant because I'm looking at one player to try and make like an accurate decision on whether or not I think that player could play in the team. Like often the team playing a completely different style, so you're looking at a player that's not doing any of the things that you're going to ask them to do, but trying to work out through snippets that okay, I think he could play for us and whatever, and that's really, really time consuming. And I also think that when that person then leaves the club, you lose that resource with that person. So like I spoke to the people at Barrow, we were talking before the game, and they had Ian, who's at Bolton? Ian Everett, thank you. Ian Everett, who's incredible, by the way, he's unbelievable. And Ian Everett done like every single role. Like he was like proper, like how a traditional manager used to be, like do every single thing. And they said that when he left, it was like when the Romans left. It was like every they went to the Middle Ages, like everything was back to scratch, and people didn't know how to do the jobs that he was doing. They didn't have the experience and the contacts and so on. And after that experience, they decided, like, we need to bring people in that are going to outlive the manager. And I think that that's actually a much healthier way. Yeah, you have to trust the people around you, and this is why we spend time together and we talk a lot, because that helps you to build the trust and you understand each other better. And of course, you've met the owners, and that they're straight shooters. They'll tell you exactly what they're thinking and what their plan is. So then I try to adapt, like, okay, let me just relax about who's coming through the door and wait until they actually arrive, and then give them like my absolute best effort that I can possibly give them, and don't try to have like a, like an agenda. I didn't want this player, or I think we should have got this player instead. If I just remove myself from that, then I don't have like any unconscious bias, if that makes sense. I just trust the people around me that they're going to bring the best player available, and then enjoy and look forward to that person coming in and give them every support I can give them. I think that's the best approach for me.
Thanks, Luke. Joey, you've had lots of experience in football. How would you assess the recruitment strategy at Notts compared with some of the other ones that you've seen?
I think this is probably one of the best I've seen, if I'm being honest. I think the problem you get with a lot of football clubs is there's always so many opinions around footballers and players, and you get so many politics, and this scout likes this one, and this player, this manager or this coach likes this one, and it's so difficult. And if you can eradicate that or try to remove as much as possible and stay very focused on a very particular strategy, you remove all of that, and everyone's focused then. They're focused on the player you're bringing in. You understand his role in the team. So it's by far the best most streamlined process I've seen.
Great stuff. Last one on recruitment, and it's for you, Rich. Will we look to sign players from abroad? Now we're in the EFL and the rules have changed. So are we going to get another Ruben Rodriguez, for example?
Nobody wants that.
No, there's only one of them. What's it got?
He's doing very well. We're all very happy for him. Yeah. Needs to stop doing interviews, I think.
I could have told you that a year ago.
Absolutely, yeah. This was a big part of the. I'm sure the owners, and I know they explained back in 2019. This was a big part of the original strategy was to recruit from abroad, and then the rules changed, and that avenue was taken away after 2020, which was a real shame at the time because we thought there was a lot of value to be had in recruiting players from abroad, because generally the wages you had to pay were a bit cheaper, and you could find different kinds of profiles that maybe weren't so readily available in the UK or overpriced in the UK. I definitely think that the market has shifted a little bit in the last 2 years or so. I think there are more competitors in that space. So when we talk about Ruben, when we signed Ruben in the summer of 2020, we were the only British club that made him an offer. There was no interest from any other club in the UK at all. He had a very good offer from Germany, a couple of very good offers from the Dutch top tier, but he had his heart set on coming to England because his agent was advising him to come to England. So we actually were his only choice. I think we sold the club well, and he had a great experience here, obviously, and I don't think he regrets it for a second, but we were the only club in town really at that point. I would think if Ruben was on the market this summer, there would be a whole host of EFL clubs who would look at his profile and say that's a player we should bring to England. So I think the market has got more difficult, but it's not to say that we won't be exploring all of those avenues for sure. For us, the most important thing is to find the most value we can possibly. So we're looking to find the best players we possibly can for the lowest price we possibly can. That can be down the road. It can be in Russia. It could be in Holland. It could be in France. We're not prejudiced about that. It's not about trying to be in Europe. It's about just trying to get the best value players for Notts County to help us win promotions. That will be the strategy. But I wouldn't be surprised to see.
Not Russia though.
Not Russia. No, that might be a bit contentious now.
Being political now. But yeah.
Are we allowed? I don't know.
Luke, can I get your thoughts as well? I know that whenever somebody joins Notts, they've got quite a big school term to go through with you to get used to the culture of the way that you want to play and your level of detail and the instructions that you give. Would that be an additional challenge, do you think, for a player potentially coming from overseas?
I think it would be, yeah. I think if you don't have a good grasp of very poor English, then yeah, I think it can be an issue. I also think that there's a lot of other things to think about when you sign a player from abroad, you know, because the living arrangement is a big deal for them. Of course, you have to make sure that the player's able to deal with all of the new, environment around them, and they don't have a vehicle. Like when we sign a guy from wherever, from Gateshead or they drive their car to Nottingham and they're fine. But you sign a guy from abroad, and most of the time they need a vehicle straight away, and somewhere to live, and then they move into a place they can't speak the language, they've got no friends around the place. So in actual fact, I think Ruben's a great example of somebody that really, he struggled at the beginning. From talking to Ruben, throughout last season, he struggled at the beginning, but he managed to, because he is that type of personality that, he managed to draw people in, and then he became very comfortable. And by the time he left, he was, the king of the castle when he was running amok everywhere. But he had that personality, and I think, you sign a guy that doesn't have that outgoing personality and finds it very difficult. It's hard to believe that they're going to come in and be able to perform really, really well. I worked for like a big championship club, and the level that they're able to support a player coming from abroad is on a different scale because of the finances available, and because they've been in the Premier League, they have big contacts, and they've learned techniques of how to help the guys settle. But we probably need to be a bit more cautious and a bit more careful when we're signing a player from abroad, that we narrow down plenty of things to, okay, will this guy really be able to make this work? Is it? And I would say that with Ruben there was some level of unknown, and at some point I think it could have gone one way or the other. That's from talking to Ruben himself. I think at the beginning wasn't completely smooth sailing, but I think we have to be aware of that as well, that we're moving towards that, being really able to cater for that market, and we will get there, but might be a bit of a way off for us, that one.
Joe, you've worked at Shakhtar. What's your view on the overseas market?
Well, that was a very different model there. Obviously, having 13 Brazilians, that was slightly different. My view is very much the same as Richard's. I think, understanding that, you can get slightly higher level players or better value, because, good English players are overpriced here. So there is a good opportunity. But as Luke says, it's that integration piece and them adapting to, where they are, the local environment, language, different culture. It doesn't always work. Some countries are better at it than others. If you look at some of the successes, in particularly I'd say Scandinavia, they seem to adapt very well in the UK, but others less so and may take a little bit more time. So it really does depend on the personality at the end of the day.
Great. Right, Luke and Rich can take a breather now because it's stadium infrastructure. So we're going to talk about capacity, use of the Jimmy Cyril stand, cashless concourses, disabled facilities, all in this section. The first question is from Rob Dawson. Can we have an update on the mystery of the stadium's maximum capacity?
Yes. I mean, this is probably the question I get asked the most at every single club I've been at, because it's the only thing I will say is that it's a problem that everyone has. It's a mystery for all stadiums, unfortunately. We're ultimately at the mercy of our safety advisory group and a very large book called the Green Guide, which changes every now and again, and it has guidelines set out for how stadiums should be. And it's more for when you're building a new stadium that you have to follow those guidelines. It will say that your gangways have to be this wide, your steps can only be this high, and they're changing over time. And obviously with an old stadium, it means you're becoming more and more outdated all the time. So we then get, the safety advisory group will sort of say, well, we're not happy with the concourse size here, or the escape routes, or you need more escape doors, fire doors to get out of the building in order to have a higher capacity. So it limits what we can have in certain stands and certain settings or structures. So the one for us, I'd say right now probably about 18,000 is where we're at. We're obviously heavily restricted in the Cyril stand, as many of you know. I think that's one of the next questions ultimately. That takes it down a lot. We've got a number of restricted or obscured view seats. They could be sold, obscured ones, but obviously they're not going to be top sellers. You can't see the goal mouths. We've also then, during TV games, you'll also get seat kills from where they have to position the cameras. Some of you may have had to have been moved as a result of that, which is obviously unfortunate. But we'd like to, down the line, perhaps look at trying to put some permanent infrastructure so we don't have to keep taking seats away. But obviously that's investment. So there, and it will always change. And I've been at clubs where you spent a lot of time, a lot of money trying to get the attendance back up, and then ultimately the guidelines change and they've just dropped back again. Or you may have a different safety officer who has a different view on things. So it's going to be fluctuating for some time. What we can do, though, is I think is ultimately, particularly with the Cyril, leading on to that question, can the capacity be increased in there? Yes, it can. In fact, I think Stephen himself has pretty much nailed it on the head in terms of saying that we could in theory extend the concourse out. If you know that side of the stand, it looks like a very large pavement, but actually part of it to the pin curb is actually ours, and then the rest is council pavement. So we could take it to the edge of that, and we've had some stadium specialists down here talking to them at the moment about different options. The other option is to go the other way, is to actually sort of kind of take where you'd see the concourse and the toilets now, to take them out and actually build them on the outside. So there's different ways of doing it, and certainly we're going to explore that option, but obviously it's got to make financial sense, and not be something that's going to cost millions of pounds to do. We think it can be done cheaper, so it's certainly something we want to explore. But yeah, in terms of the mystery of capacity size, unfortunately, it's going to continue to be a bit of a mystery, and it may change again. But we've always got to make sure that we're on top of that, and that we do our best to ensure that it doesn't drop any lower. I think that's the most important thing.
Thanks, Joe. I think that answers both Rob Dawson and Stephen Newton's questions. So we'll move on to Thomas Pepper asking, are there any plans to further improve Meadow Lane in terms of things like electronic advertising boards, improved running track, etc.?
Yes, absolutely want to make changes. I think we're actually in conversation right now about LED perimeter boards. It's very important. As going back to my first answer regarding sort of where we want to go commercially with the club. So we've completely now restructured all the commercial packages. In order to do that, we need to be able to create more assets, and LED boards give you that opportunity to create more packages and better value packages. So that's a really key part, of that direction of travel. So we are looking at that at the moment. Obviously, one of the main bits of infrastructure that we're going to need to look at above anything else is the pitch itself. It may look very nice and green at the start of the season and plush, but Luke will tell you otherwise. It's very tired. I don't think I think the last time it's reconstructed was, Dave, was it 20 years ago? 23 years ago. That's a very old pitch, and unfortunately things like the drainage system in there are failing, which means it's going to need not just a top layer or turfing, it's complete reconstruction. To dig down, it's to take away some of the bad earth, to put new drainage in, new irrigation, all sorts. And whilst we're doing that, obviously we want to look at the infrastructure around it. We want to look at data cabling, power cabling for things like the LED boards, and then obviously to make the dog track around the outside look a lot nicer. Whether that would be astroturfing it, that's the most likely thing. But we all want to get there. It's all something we want to do, but it's a considerable sum of money. So we are looking at a number of providers at the moment, getting quotes, but also doing. In fact, actually Thursday we've got a full sort of survey to sort of actually dig down and have a look at what the real case is of the pitch. So it's a real science, pitches, and obviously they're very costly, but we want to make sure we get it right, and obviously put in the best technology we can to play the best football that we can on it. So yes, we absolutely are looking at as many upgrades as we can. I love stadiums, so everywhere I turn, everywhere I look, I see look at opportunities and rooms and spaces outside that we can look to create not only a better match day atmosphere and a better experience for everybody, but also where we can be more commercial, opportunities to put other retail outlets around the stadium, so you don't just have to go to the shop, that you can just come out your stand and buy a scarf when it's cold. It's that sort of thing. So there's a lot of things we need to do here, and we're going through a process at the moment where we're reviewing every single department. So we're reviewing the stadium, we're reviewing retail, we're reviewing ticketing, reviewing hospitality, everything, to really take a really big look at this and look at where we can go potentially from next season in some of these things, to make them better for everybody, better experience for fans, and better from a commercial point of view. So there's a lot of work to do, but this is the exciting bit. So yeah.
Luke, I'd like to bring you in on that. Obviously, the pitch relates to you, but I just wonder as well, when you hear about the plans and the level of investment that the club are willing to consider, even non-football side of things, how much encouragement does it give you as the head coach that the club's going to move in a positive direction on and off the pitch? Yeah,
absolutely. I think when the club has that mentality that they're looking for the gains and to try and improve all the different aspects of the club, that it's a forward-thinking club, and that they're ambitious, and of course as a head coach you want to be involved in a club that is ambitious and you have a chance to try and win something. That's why we want to be in it, and it's really exciting when we see that there's modernisation and we're trying to bring a better experience, and we have to keep pace with that on the pitch. We have to try and be 4-0 up at half time every week so that people want to come and watch. Now we're getting there, and then we have to remember to play the second half as well, because I think the players want to get a scarf. But we want to try to be involved in something that's really got energy behind it. And after what we've done, all together last season, we have like momentum now, and that's the time when you have to try to. And of course, Joe coming and joining us straight after the promotion is like a clear sign that that's the biggest signal that the club is like trying to capitalise on. Okay, we got promoted, we have good energy. Let's bring somebody in that can try to find new revenue streams for us and make the experience more enjoyable. Let's see if we can hook in the new fans. Like, if you came because a friend told you, "Oh, come on, we're playing well, we're winning," come in for the first time to Meadow, and you go there and the experience is good, the more chance you're going to come back. So this is really exciting for me, like, to see the energy going on around and the excitement going on around to make the improvements is brilliant.
Great stuff. Dean Belfield asks, why have the refreshment kiosks gone cashless? I never use a card and it's losing the club, mine and others' revenue, Joe.
Yeah, this is always an interesting question. Yeah, I mean, it's part about moving forward, as we said, and being dynamic, and we need to progress, we need to be innovative. And, I think certainly since lockdown, I think generally cashless has become one of the main mechanisms. It took a massive stride. Most clubs are out, all trying to move that direction, and the reason is simple. Ultimately, it's 3 times faster, in terms of service. So therefore, the match day's experience is better for fans because it should be quicker. It saves a huge amount of resource in terms of cashing up and accounting for that money afterwards. It saves on theft, saves on counterfeit money, so it saves the club. So ultimately, it's really supports the club by going cashless. It helps us to understand more accurately the numbers, understand data more. So generally, it's a really good move for clubs. I understand from the fans' point of view that some fans are very used to having cash and want to use that, and there's ways around that. We can ultimately introduce things like vouchers, cards that people can come to the stadium with cash in exchange, and use them so that we still have that experience where we don't have that theft, where we have quick service. So it's about finding solutions to that and working with fans to make that work for everyone.
Thank you. Stephen Hopkin asks, please can we have the handrails put back in the Pavis stand to help elderly fans back to their seats?
Yeah, I know. So I didn't actually know that there was. I know there's some at the top of the stand. I didn't know that there was that handrails there to begin with. Yeah, that's gone down to the scrap metal yard. Yeah, we are looking at that. We had a meeting last week. We brought down the SAG and another guy from the council to talk about. We want to do it. That's the view. But as I said, it's not a decision that we can make on our own. We can't just put them in as much as we'd like to. So we have to get this past the SAG. We've had that initial meeting. I'm expecting some quotes which are not going to be the barrier to this. It's more going to be the case of...
Come on, Sam, man. You had such
one job.
You had such a good start as well.
No, so yeah, we are definitely looking at it. We think the conversation went well. We think there's a very good chance that we can. I understand the concern. It is incredibly steep in that stand, and it's a very long walk up there as well. I think I'd need them to get up there, to be honest. So I hope that we'll have some good news in the coming weeks and that we can do that. I think the view is that we would need to test a smaller area first, and then if the SAG are happy with that, they don't see that there's any issue after a few games, then we could roll it out more widely on other steps. So yeah, definitely it's on our agenda for sure.
Great. And finally on infrastructure of the stadium, Karen Hicklin, Martin Briggs and Alan Lowe all had similar questions. Are there any plans to improve the experience of disabled fans at Meadow Lane? Being a wheelchair user, you can get very wet sitting at the front and the view isn't the best.
Yeah, it's something I would love to be able to improve, if I'm honest. The problem we've got is with older stadiums, it's an absolute nightmare. You know, new stadiums are built with it in mind, and they're elevated, they're in better positions. So for a club of this age, a stadium of this age, it would, you know, to put anything further back, we've got to build ramps, we've got to change the physical structure of the stand itself. It's not to say that we wouldn't, or whether it's a case of putting some roofs on disabled areas. So definitely it's something that's on that review list, as I said. We know about this question. We've had a few people write in relation to it. Obviously, we do what we can at the moment, which is providing sort of waterproofs and ponchos and blankets for disabled fans at the front, knowing that. But again, it's not an easy task in an old stadium, or even smaller stadiums will find the same problem. So it's on our agenda, and if we can, we will make those changes.
Right, last set of questions before we have a brief interval. It wouldn't be a fans forum without a question on set pieces, so Luke will be looking forward to that. We're also going to have a chat about the training ground, the retail offering at the club and the academy, but yeah, we need to start on the set pieces, don't we? Karen Hicklin has asked, or has stated, I understand that we take short corners, I would think, due to lack of height in the box, but these don't result in goals. How can we improve on this, Luke?
Okay, right. I'm going to tell you the truth now. Okay, we have the most shots on target from corners in EFL. 1 in 4 corners results in a shot on target. Is the best by a long way. We've actually scored the most goals in the division from corners, but you don't know they're from corners, do you? Because unless we whack it in the box, it's not a corner. Okay, but we take a corner, we pass the ball until that ball is turned over and we give it away or it goes off the pitch. It's still a corner. Still a corner. Okay, and we are extremely successful at corners. I am sorry to break your hearts, but it's the truth. Because I made sure we'd done the research, and of course, look, and I'm being serious now, corners have a very low success rate across football, worldwide, you know, putting the ball into the box. But of course, when somebody runs through the crowd and heads the ball and it smashes into the back of the net, we remember it. We don't remember 50 corners that just got caught by the goalkeeper, hit the side netting, headed away. We just forget. And we also forget that when the ball comes into the pitch immediately and it's passed 5 times and then crossed from the other side, we think it was open play. That it was just a part of the game, but it wasn't. It was from a corner. Okay? Then, when you play against Notts County, one of the issues that you have is that the ball is in play for longer than any other game in the EFL. So, you will notice that the players have been instructed that they sprint. Poor little Wazza, he sprints, gets the ball, puts it down, passes it immediately. So you don't get a break. Some of the defenders, many of the defenders, they love corners because they can have a rest. They're 6'3", so they don't want Dan Crowley running at them or Azza running behind them. They definitely don't want Macca in the box free and scoring 42 goals from open play. Right? So, we take the ball, put it down, immediately pass the ball, and the defender, again, Notts County. Come on, just kick it into the goalkeeper's hands so we can smash it the length of the pitch and break. No, not going to happen, I'm afraid. I'm sorry. And we kicked one last season directly into the box and Macca scored. You know why? Because everybody was at the corner trying to stop us playing shoot. So I'm sorry to break everyone's hearts, but this is the reality that we are extremely successful from corners.
There we go. Round of applause, I think, for that Churchillian speech. Right, another question that regularly comes up on the fans forums. We're going to send this one over to Rich. Any progress on permanent training facilities?
That's a very good question. So, as many of you would know, over the last 3 years we've trained at Home Road, thanks to our relationship with our friends over the river, which has been beneficial for them as well with having their women's team and their 21s team playing some games at Meadow Lane. So we've been at Home Road for the past 3 years, and the pitches have been great for us. The facility's been great for us. I think at National League level and even at League 2 level, it's still a very good facility. But it's absolutely our intention to have our own proper training ground facility. I don't want to say in the near future because these things take time, but in the medium term, it's absolutely ambition of the owners. It's what all of us want, is to have our own base, our own home. Obviously, I'm aware of the history of the club not having its own permanent training ground over the club's history, really. So it's absolutely an aspiration for us and something that we are actively trying to work towards. Sort of taking concrete steps and speaking to the council about potential sites, and starting to really think quite clearly about the level of funding required and the type of facility that we would want. I think in order for the club to keep developing, it's going to be very important as we go up, hopefully through the levels, to have a facility that reflects the club's standing, for attracting players, but also for giving coaching staff the best possible place of work, the players the best possible place of work. We're always trying to do things here to the highest standard that we can, to be above the level, and I think having our own purpose-built training facility would be another example of going above the level, trying to attain elite status. We're trying to, with everything we do, we're trying to do it as best as we possibly can for the level that we're at, and this would absolutely be the next step towards that. So yes, it is a very, very real aspiration for us. As I say, in the medium term, I would feel comfortable saying.
Luke, how far forward would that take us as a club, do you think?
Yeah, I think there's no doubt there's a direct link between top performance and top facility. There's no doubt. But yeah, of course, it's really, really difficult. We know that. I think at the start of pre-season, the pitches are rock hard, and then we have lots and lots of rain, and the pitches are really, really soft, and this is really detrimental to the physicality of the players. This is like a injury risk. And we have, by the way, like Premier League ground staff. They are absolutely top drawer. So they maximise what we have. There's no doubt. They're brilliant. But I think if we gave them, better facilities, they would do an incredible job. And like what the guys are saying is, this is all the truth. They are going to look at sites regularly. I know that because they don't come to training some day. Richard don't come to training because he's going to look at a site, and then Joe come to see me the other day to tell me we looked at this site and this potential problem and that problem. These things are really, really not easy. I think Brighton done it recently. I think Tony Bloom wrote £100 million personal cheque or something, to just get it done. But yeah, in the real world, that's not. So it has to be done with help from the local authority, with help sometimes from like several people own portions of the land, you know, and it gets quite convoluted. You have to try and get this person to agree to sell this bit, and another guy's got to agree to sell his bit of land to make it all feasible, and you buy all the land, but then someone else owns the gate and you can't get in because he won't let you. So it's all these weird and wonderful.
If anyone has any land they want to get.
So there is definitely a drive to do it. I can see that, but I also know, you know, anyone who's moved house knows how difficult that can be, whether that part of the fence is yours or not or whatever. So it's like that, but on a big scale. And yeah, of course, there's no doubt it would improve. It would make us a better football club, and it give us margins of gain in performance.
Yeah. Joe, can you give us some insight into the sort of the scale of that as a project?
Yeah, I mean, you know, ultimately it's about finding the land, and we are at the moment. We've had conversations with all 3 councils. I've gone to meet all of them to talk to them to start that process of saying, well, where are there potential plots of land in the city that we might be able to take on? A lot of time with councils, they've got plots of land that they don't know what to do with, or they've become disused, or used to be a school or something like that, and quite often looking for someone to take that over that could still provide potentially some community element to it, but at the same time take that off their hands from a maintenance point of view. So we're having those conversations. We're right at the start of that, and we've been thrown a few over, and I'm hoping for a few more. But you know, we've got to make sure that we keep all our options open, you know, because we don't have our training ground and we are renting. Like I said, we're happy with that, and we've got a good relationship with Forest. But you know, you never know what can happen. So we need to make sure that we're prepared and we have backup options. And likewise, if the pitch gets really bad down at Lady Bay, then you know, have we got a backup option in the winter? Have we got another pitch that we can go to that's of the right standard? So it's just making sure that we've got backup options, but also other larger scale options, you know, for the future. And obviously we'd like that to happen as soon as possible, because the sooner we can, the better it is for the first team. So yeah, it's a big priority for us at the moment.
Last few questions before the break. Ben King to Joe. Every year the replica kits sell out before Christmas. Kids miss out on a prized shirt and the club lose out on income. How can this be avoided in the future? And also on the retail side, Malcolm Bullard and Josh Salmons ask whether there are plans to improve the retail website and the shop itself.
Yeah. So, yes, ultimately, I think previous seasons we've sold sort of the 3,000 to 3,500 shirts, and that hasn't been enough. This year we've ordered 8,000, so it's a massive increase. Unfortunately, they haven't arrived. That's unfortunately out of our control. Supply chain issues, you know, with our kit provider. I think every kit provider's had the same issues this year. So we hope the last drop is a couple of weeks. Is that right, Jordan? Yeah, start of December should be the final drop. And I know some fans have pre-ordered those shirts, so hopefully we'll have plenty and we don't run out. But it's always a challenge, because you're always trying to keep that balance between, you don't want to have overstock, because then, you know, ultimately you're left with stock that you can't sell and your margin drops on that. So your profitability that season isn't as good. So you're always trying to be as close as you can, but the only way you can do that comfortably is understanding data more. And we are heavily looking at our systems, and actually one of the big things that I've noticed is that we need to go through a data and digital transformation in the club, and utilise data more for decision making. And one of those things is looking at the systems that we have in retail at the moment, so that we can make better value-based decisions. So I'm hoping, looking forward, this is going to be a great season for us to say, well, hang on, if we sell all 8,000, brilliant. You know, that's a really good a bit of data for us to understand where we're going forward, and what we might expect if we have even more success, what that jump up might look like as well. So, and what the ratio is in terms of attendance in the stadium compared to, you know, sales of shirts, and there will be a metric there. So it's really sort of following that kind of level of thinking, really, and that's where we need to get to. But we need the systems as well in place to provide that level of information to us. So absolutely, yeah, it's something that we're hoping doesn't get repeated on a basis going forward. But certainly this season we've definitely not seen a drop in income. I think certainly speaking to Lynn said this is probably the largest she's ever seen since she's been here. So it's great. So thanks to everybody for that, first and foremost. That's brilliant, absolutely amazing. But we still think there's a lot of opportunity there, and we're already making this week, again, going through the review process. The first thing that we identified is actually that we don't have a big enough stockroom. So we can't hold enough stock here. So sometimes the shop might look a little bit empty because we simply run out. And also we can't optimise online as well if we haven't got a big storeroom to be able to pick and pack and do fulfilment. So one of the things we're looking at is we found a new room, probably about 6 times the size of what we have at the moment. So we hope that will keep up with the demand and mean that we can order in more stock, so that we have more stock readily available, and also order a bigger range. So that's really kind of a core starting point for development of retail. We have to have that right infrastructure to be able to sustain the type of retail operation that we want to have. So we're making those strides, and I really hope that from next year we'll be in a very different situation.
Great stuff. Rich, one for you from David Shipston. What difference has regaining league status made to the youth setup at the club? And do you see this providing a realistic source of players who can make it into the first team?
Yeah, this has made a huge difference to our academy. I can see some supporters of our academy over there who stuck with us in the National League years, which is massively appreciated, because I think it's maybe most of you know, but I can explain for those who don't. When you get relegated from League 2, after 2 years in the National League, you lose your category status. So we were a Category 3 academy when we got relegated, and you keep that status for 2 years, and then after that 2 years, you lose all of your funding from the EFL to run an academy, and you also lose all of your protections around the players that you have in your academy. So you were essentially getting picked off by bigger clubs around you, or bigger academies around you, without being compensated for those players. So the academy was essentially pillaged legally and fairly by other clubs, because we didn't have any protection over those players. So we lost a lot of very good young players, and the effects of that will be felt for a few years to come, unfortunately, because no academy can withstand sort of that level of loss of talent. But thankfully, thanks to the great work of Dan Levers and the rest of the academy staff, we were in a position that when we did achieve promotion, we could go straight back to Category 3, which I think is testament to all of their hard work, because I know for a fact that when clubs like Stockport and Grimsby and Wrexham have been promoted out of the National League, they've really struggled to get their academies back up to that standard. So the fact that we went straight back to Category 3 is, as I say, a testament to the hard work of the guys responsible for that area. But the downside of losing quite a lot of good players over the past 3 or 4 years is that it's going to take a bit longer for the academy to start really providing players, we hope, for the first team. Simply because it has been so stretched over the previous years. However, having said that, I mean, one of the benefits of having a smaller squad, I think, is that we have more youngsters involved daily in training with Luke and his team. Probably on an average day, there's three or four young players down there taking part in the 11v11. 4 today, taking part in extremely competitive 11v11 games. I think we've seen in the EFL Trophy, we gave some minutes to younger players. We've had Meadow playing, we've had Charlie Gill. Newport, we ended with Meadow on the pitch. Charlie Gill. Lucian's obviously played a part as well. So we are seeing an influx of younger players. I think my message would be just to try and be patient with it. I think simply because, as I say, the academy essentially suffered a trauma in getting relegated and losing a lot of talent, but we're going to do our best, and everyone I know over that side is going to work their hardest to make sure that we can see young players in the first team, because I know that's hugely important for the lifeblood of a football club, and something I know Luke believes in, giving opportunities to young players. That's absolutely on the agenda for us. I just think it's going to take a little bit of time. Through really no fault of our own. I think it's a bit of an antiquated system that means that players that are raised in your academy suddenly can't be yours anymore simply because you suffer a relegation. But that's another issue entirely.
Thanks, Rich. We'll finish with a bit of team news from Luke, hopefully. Kedwin Scott, is he out for the season or could he be back sooner, asks Nick Hogg.
I think that we have to plan for Kedwin to not be seen again on the pitch, unfortunately. And I think if we have that mindset, we won't be, so disappointed if we say, he's going to return to play and then he doesn't. So I think that it's best to have that mentality around Kedwin's injury. He's certainly doing extremely well on his recovery because it's mentally a challenging time. Very, very tough time, especially for a guy at the stage that he's at. When you look at how hard Kedwin worked to get to the EFL and then to not be able to take part in the first season is like a crushing blow for him. But he's been incredible. He's been really, he's been a top professional around how he's trying to go about getting back and recovering. He said to me, it was an unbelievable comment, like, I think Macca had scored like his 10th goal or something in the league, and I think we were talking, and the conversation was along the lines of like, you're doing so well, Kedwin. I said, and I know it must be difficult for you to see, your pal scoring, and he said, so I'll just wait and score in League One next season. And I was like, wow, what a guy! Like that's top. It was straight off the bat. So, that's a little insight into, I think, his mentality that I'm going to do every single thing that I can to get back as quickly as I can. But he's already got his mind right that, okay, if I don't, then okay, no worries, I'll just hit the ground running next season. So, let's have that approach with him, I think, and then we won't be disappointed if we don't get to see him on the pitch this season.
Just to mention also for Geraldo and Matt, obviously both long-term absentees as well at different stages, I imagine, of their rehab. What's the latest with them and how are they doing? Yeah,
again, I think there's a strong chance we won't see either of those guys as well. Badge is doing brilliant. I mean, the one thing is that when they can't run around and play football and they don't have to prepare for a game, they can really work on their body in the gym. And like Badge is like, he's a big man anyway, but he looks looking like the Hulk at the moment. He's really impressive guy. Matty is still like early stages, so he's on crutches, and the wounds are still quite sore. It's a bit heartbreaking for me when I see, because like I think, when you play a player that much, and he played like every game for me since I've been here, pretty much, apart from when he was sulking first game of the season. But we don't talk about that anymore. I don't ever remind him of that. But other than that, he's just there, and he's like that. He really, for me, was like the heartbeat, and he give a certain rhythm to the team that I always feel like we can weather a storm better with Matty on the pitch. I feel like we can hit a high note really better with Matty on the pitch. And when I see him coming in a crutch, it's still now when he came in today, like for lunch, and I see him on the crutches, it just does not look right. I just expect a little ball machine just buzzing around and just firing passes off, and just comes out every day, never misses training, like you were saying earlier, just comes out of his little bobble every single day, and yeah, it's heartbreaking, to see a guy like that, and he's on, but he's got a positive mind, and he'll come back from it, and I'm sure he'd be buzzing around on a pitch and playing again for us in next season if he doesn't make it on the pitch this season.
Great stuff. I think that's it for the first half. We'll have a 15-minute break or so that should take us to about 8:25. The bar's open, tea and coffee there, toilets at the end of the corridor, and we'll see you soon. To roll on the second half. So this is the eagerly anticipated questions from the floor round. I've got two glamorous assistants, Charlie Roach at the back there, and I've also got Faye with two roaming mics. So I'm sure you've all got plenty to ask. Raise those hands and let's get going. Yes, sir. Straight in front of us. Come on, Roachy. Could have given you an easier start, couldn't I?
You mentioned earlier that attendances have gone up at Meadow Lane. They've also gone up on away travel as well, I believe. Are there any plans to have a travel club? Because there are people now who have followed not through the National League, travelled every week. There are people who are travelling every week now and they can't get transport. So is there any way that we're going to put a travel club together for those supporters who have...
Put my mic on. Just for the people who didn't hear, we just had a mic issue there. It's a question regarding travel and having potentially a travel club, which Joe will answer.
Yeah, it's possible. I've not really got into that part yet in terms of sort of looking at what we can do. I know we've obviously the OSA and the Sporters Club also do a transport. Yeah, I mean how many? We have quite a lot of buses, do we already?
One.
Sorry, I don't know a huge amount of that.
There's one going on Saturday.
Right.
And a minibus. And there's quite a few people in the room, I believe, who can't get on the bus.
Okay.
People who have travelled away to most games throughout the National League days.
Okay. All right. Well, look, it's something I need to take away really and look at in more detail.
Yeah, please,
Yeah. Sure.
Tickets are becoming more difficult to get.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for your question. Who's next? Who's got a question? I'll see Brandon in the far right there, if you can have a wander over, Faye.
So my question's for Luke. I don't know how reliable FootMob stats are, but it does put Notts at the lowest per game for fouls, but also we have the most yellow cards in the league. I just wondered what your thoughts about that was, and do you think it's mainly be a discipline issue? Because some of the yellow cards that we do seem to be getting seem to be through kicking the ball away, time wasting, just things like that. I just wanted to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, thank you. I think that a county player being booked for time wasting just for me is just nonsense. Like, it takes us on average, it takes us 7 seconds to get the ball in play from a corner, but it takes our opponents well over a minute. But I don't see the two centre halves getting booked for walking the length of the pitch to get into the box. I don't see Wrexham players getting booked for time wasting when Tozer takes 15 minutes to tumble try the ball, walk halfway up the stand. So, we suffered, Asnamain got booked at Salford away for time wasting. You was there, no? Yeah. Time wasting? Yeah. Time wasting? Us? Come on. We're trying to not just win the game, we're trying to destroy the other team. And we get the ball in play far quicker than anybody else. So for me, there's a big issue around we've committed the least fouls. We are the most fouled team, but we also have the most bookings. I'm sorry, I don't buy it. I think there's a perception towards us that if we get kicked after having the ball for 20 minutes, we deserved it. If we make one foul when the opposition barely touched the ball, it's not fair. Like, they've barely touched it and now you fouled them. Aidan Baldwin got brought down in the game at the weekend against Bradford for when he dribbled between two players. The goal kick was I got nervous with this one. But Aidan managed to make an incredible action. And the player, because at this point, Bradford were like 4-0 down and they said, okay, let's just play Hail Mary every single action. Hail Mary, everyone pressing. And Aidan dribbled through 3 players, and then if he takes one more touch, he'd probably end a 1v1 with their goalkeeper. Like, it was that wide open, the pitch. And so the Bradford player, in a sensible way, said, no, down you go, and he makes a tactical foul. Okay, tactical foul is something that you say to your players, take a booking for the team. If you know, we all done this, yeah, we all played, and you say, sorry buddy, but you're through and you have to go, and you accept it, you take the booking. He didn't book him, the player just runs off. Then Aidan has a free kick, the player is refusing to retreat the distance, yeah, so Aidan, who can be incredible but then a maniac, yeah, he tries to kick the ball against the opponent. Okay, if Aidan hits the opponent, the Bradford player is booked. Yeah, if he kicks it and it hits him, he's booked for not retreating the distance. But Aidan missed. He missed, and so then he gets booked and now suspended. I don't think it's a level playing field. I'm being honest. Okay, I'm being honest in this little room. Turn the camera off, but I'm being honest in this room. Because you will never hear me in the press, never hear me making victims of myself or the players. I refuse. I tell them every single thing that happened is your fault. Crew away is your fault, the referee got injured. It's your fault that the linesman gave the wrong decision. It's your fault. Everyone, it's all the players' fault. Because I want them to be, and I mean this, as much as I'm having fun, I genuinely, the way I talk to you all after the game through the press is the same way that I talk to the players in this room when we debrief the game. That Crew, we have to be 4-0 up, and then we give away the penalty and we say, silly, 4-1. But we left it too late. We missed too many opportunities to attack the box. Too many balls whizzing across the box and only Langstaff in there. The rest, they need to commit themselves more to the box, and too many breakdowns in actions where we're nearly there but we just didn't quite finish the action off properly. That's where I judge them. I have my own personal opinion on the referee and the linesman, but I'm not going to share it with the players and give them this victim mentality that we were cheated out of it. But it's getting to the point, enough is enough, because last season we didn't get a penalty until November. We had the most touches in the opposition box of any team in the National League. We had the most possession, the most how can we spend more time in the opposition's box than every other team? And we were the most fouled. But just through pure magic, no one ever fouled anyone inside the box to give away a penalty. So then I went to the press and I said, yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed. The main man teed me up, you know. He just threw it up there. All I had to do was volley it. And he said, you know, what do you make of the referee? And something along these lines, I'm sure. I can't remember exactly, but, you know, it looks like there was maybe two chances for us to have a penalty at the weekend. So, saying in the press, I think we have the most touches in the box, we have the blah, 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 but we haven't had one penalty. Next game penalty. Why do you have to do that? Next game penalty. Then we play Solihull away, 2 penalties. Then we play Torquay penalty. Suddenly the penalties coming. So, I don't know, because now I had a very, very nice phone call from the League Managers Association when we got promoted, but they forgot that I was already a member. So they said, welcome to the EFL, How have you found the refereeing? I said, I'm glad you asked. I said, put the kettle on. So I said, this is the truth. I'm talking about numbers. I'm not talking about my interpretation of what I'm seeing, because let's be honest, I'm going to be biased. I'm going to say, we should have had loads more penalties because all my players keep getting fouled. Of course. I'm going to try to cheat and say the refereeing is all against us. I'm not talking about my opinion. I'm talking about the numbers. How can we be the most fouled, committed the least fouls, and the most yellow card? This is like maths that even my 4-year-old understands. It don't make sense. So maybe Nick is going to tee me up in the press and I'm going to tell them how I feel, because... Thank you for the question. Sorry, I'm not sure even if I answered it. I don't know if I answered the question. No, I don't think there's like a big discipline problem. I don't. I think that we see our opponents doing the same things to us, or the same type of actions, and being allowed. How many fouls Bradford make? Come on, tell me. 12. How many do we make?
3.
How many bookings Bradford?
0.
How many bookings us?
3.
Come on.
He's hard to argue with at times, isn't he? Next question. Gentleman in the middle, please. That's probably just about you.
So this question connects to attracting new fans and also new revenue. How are we going to increase the visibility of Notts in Nottingham itself? First, we had the fiasco over the trophy parade that never was. And then, a few months later, I was very saddened to see a very large Nottingham Forest jersey covering one side of the council house. So how, in the words of Jimmy Cyril, are we to turn the city black and white?
Yeah, it's a very good point. A very good question. And absolutely, that is, key on my agenda. I think the first thing I noticed when I came in was kind of the lack of relationship that we had with key stakeholders in the city. I think that became the first step was to go and meet the councils. We've got to go and meet, the NHS Trust. We've got to meet the people in charge of schools. We've got to meet all the key stakeholders. We've got to build that relationship again. I want them to understand who we are and who we're looking to be in the future. The level we want to achieve, how ambitious we want to be. Not that we're this club that's in non-league, and everyone's just looking at Forest. So there's that. That's the sort of first stage, is to sort of re-engage with people and make sure everyone's aware of where we're looking to go, what our strategy is, why we're different, and that we're someone that they should think about being a partner of. Then we've got obviously the marketing side. So we've got more to do there, and we're going to look at how we can reach out to new groups, how we can work with large employer groups within the city, how we can increase our advertising. And there'll be some things that we might potentially reach out to some fans to help us with in that down the road. So again, we're going through the marketing review at the moment. So from a marketing point of view, that's important. But also we touched on it earlier in terms of the match day experience. So we do have a lot of new people that come. It's whether they come back again. And we've got to make sure that the match day experience is so special and spectacular that they will. And they'll continue to come back again. That's the most important thing, because actually, people. There's a lot of interesting statistics about the number of people that come to a match, and in some instances, it can be as high as 70% only come once of your whole attendance that you have throughout the year. 70% just came once. So you imagine how many. That is a huge number of people over the course of a season that are just coming once. So it's about how do we reconnect with them and make them come back again. And we've got to make sure we have all those elements. Do they know about us? Yes. Do they have a good understanding of who we are and that we're an exciting club to want to be part of? And do we provide them with a great experience on a match day? So there's a number of bits we've got to all get right at the same time. And absolutely that's, I want to see this place full. It's fantastic when it's full, isn't it? So, yeah, definitely.
Great question. Thank you very much. Let's take a question from this side of the room. Do we have any hands up? That's obviously the quiet side. Head to the back there, please. I can see Ian. No, you do, because we've got a live stream, Ian. We want to make sure everyone can hear you.
Hiya, can you hear me? There we go. I put something on Twitter the other day as SLO regarding the stadium and the matchday experience, which you've just been talking about, Joe. And what came back a lot was the look of the stadium. In certain parts, as we said, it's 30-odd years old. So what a lot of fans were suggesting was, could we have more flags or more decoration, for want of a better word, in certain parts of the stadium? A fan mentioned the Bournemouth Stadium and how in the corners there's like a artwork or imagery of former players, etc. And the second part, which is connected, is we all know the mural, I can never say that word, of Jimmy and the other guy. It looks amazing. Obviously, we'd love something like that in the stadium. So could you share with us if there are any plans to, for want of a better phrase, tart up the stadium, make it look more dazzling, make it look more exciting to enhance the matchday experience for the future?
Yeah, great question. I think it was one of the first things that I'd noticed when I first came here is that this is the world's most historical club and there's no museum. And I found that very strange, that there's, being the world's oldest, it should be a really iconic thing. And it's something that I'd love to look at down the line. It's not an easy thing to do, but very possible. We've got to find the space. But again, aligned with that, yeah, you're absolutely right. There's not a lot of murals or pictures of former players and past histories around the place. And I think it's getting the balance. We've got to mix it up with the history, but we've got to mix it up with the now and the modern and the stuff that excites younger fans for them to come and get excited about the players that we have at the moment. So we that is a key part of the match day experience. In fact, we were just talking about that the other morning, Rich.
What a wacky idea.
Yeah, it was. We were sort of looking at, obviously, the stadium itself. It's got that sort of grey. It looks a bit drab, and how we could, potentially tart it up a bit and make it look quite exciting. How cool it would look in black with the logo sort of out on it. It would look really awesome. But definitely, I think we should be looking at that type of thing. And when you're talking about things like murals and things like that, we could potentially engage with art colleges and students that we're working with through our programs to come down and do that. I know that was the case with the NHS mural, wasn't it, on the side as well, which needs a little bit of help. And I think, Jordan, there's plans to do something further down, isn't there? Yeah. So definitely, yeah.
Great. Loz, did you have something you wanted to add there? Faye, if you could just one sec, wait for the mic, Loz, so the people at home can hear you.
Pre-COVID, the OSA looked into this and doing murals and things, and we found a load of street artists to try it. We were going to pay for it to get them in to do the cop up, and then COVID came, so it all sort of...
I think what we need to look at is a sort of a master plan or a design of what spaces we should look to brand up, internally and externally. And then figure out what we want on those. So you've got to do it properly. You don't want to just sort of throw people and say, "Oh, paint this, put this up here. Let's get a proper plan together." So, yeah, we can certainly look at getting a kind of a group together, and obviously get a lot of fans' input on that and what they'd like to see where. That'd be a nice project to look at.
Thanks, Loz. Who's next, please? Yes, straight down the middle. Charlie, are you there? Go for it.
Hiya. I was just wondering about the recruitment strategy and if personality profiles matter with recruitment, because I was wondering about players with quality but could be disruptive to the changing room, and if we need to have a balance of quality and good personalities in the dressing room.
Yeah. It's absolutely an important part of the puzzle. I think everybody wants a squad and a changing room full of great characters, because that definitely has a noticeable benefit on the pitch. And you've also got to remember as well that at a football club, people are together a huge amount of time, not just playing games, but in training, travelling, eating lunch, eating breakfast. So it's very, very important that people are collegiate and they get on and that they're good characters. I think, to your question, I think that's an interesting way of looking at it. It's about the trade-offs that you might make with certain characters if their ability or if their quality is at a certain level, and that's a very difficult thing to weigh up. I think you constantly get feedback from other people in the game about, don't touch this guy, or this guy's got this problem, but you know that they've got quality and you know that they could improve your team, and those are sort of judgment calls that you have to make all the time, really, because absolutely we're always trying to get good references on the players that we bring in, and we do regularly turn players down based off of references, but you're absolutely right, there is a balancing act. If Messi was a terrible character but he wanted to come and sign for Notts County, I think we'd do it, wouldn't we? And I'm sure, like, most of us in this room are pretty good eggs, but most of us wouldn't want us playing on a Saturday afternoon. So there is obviously a point where the character becomes secondary to the quality of the player. It's just finding where that line is, and I think that can depend a lot on what you already have in the building as well. If you think you have a really good group, you can probably, I mean, Luke can probably give some context, but I think you can maybe absorb one or two more challenging characters, and if you're a bit worried about the group you have, maybe you don't want to take a risk like that. So we try and weigh that up all the time.
I think that we don't. That it's difficult to have it's difficult to have a system to judge the personality of the player, because so much of the analysis is done on what you see physically the player do. And now the players wear like GPS units, and that you can see the distance that they cover, how fast they cover that distance, how many times they can repeat that sprint, how many times they turn. You know, you can look at how many times they win their individual duels and blah, 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 goals scored. I think, like, you look at some of the sports, particularly in America, they do personality screening. So, like, particularly, say, for example, you have a group of young players that are still learning the game. They may not necessarily know their best position, and often the personality screening can be a clue to where that player should play. Like, for example, if you screen Macaulay Langstaff, I have no doubt his attacking instinct is through the roof. But then, you know, if you've done a screening on Conor Rawlinson, his defensive instinct would be through the roof. You know, and yeah, okay, it's obvious now because they're first team players, but particularly for young players, I think it's something that clubs should do more. Should screen the personality to see what position best suits that player. I think at first team level, it's more difficult. We probably are going off references, but references can be unreliable. So manager had a player at a previous club. They had a terrible season. They're in a relegation dogfight. It's very difficult for him to think positively about a player that was in that team. Do you get what I mean? So sometimes you have to try to get several references, and a reference comes from a person that you think, okay, that player is not going to be his type of player, so his reference might not be as accurate. It's very difficult, and I think it's something that will happen in the game. It will be the next level where clubs recruit on personality profiling as much as they recruit on quality of play and physical attribute. So I think it's another level that's going to come into the game for sure. It will start at the top, of course, and then it will trickle down.
Great question. Thank you very much. Who's next? Gentleman in the white shirt, and then we'll come to you, sir.
I've got two young kids. One of whom is too young to come. But the other one, he's a member of the Young Pies. He comes almost every week when I come. Both season ticket holders. We love it. But I get the feeling that when he comes, he's almost wishing there was a bit more for him. You know, you see, I don't know if it's when we score, he leaps up and he gets excited, but is there a potential for like all the kids to have flags or something, just add a bit of atmosphere to the ground, or just to give them something, just to make them feel a little bit more engaged, a little bit more excited about the day, because he's 10 years old. He drifts off sometimes during the games, and I've seen it at other clubs where they have more sort of flags and banners and stuff, and it just seems to add a bit more atmosphere. At Notts, we're not. I know the structure of the ground isn't fit for that, but I know a lot of the flags seem to be at the back of the stands and stuff. But if you had little kids waving them in the crowd, it just, for me, it just add a little bit to the atmosphere. I don't know how anybody feels about that.
Yeah, I mean that's not just a question for myself. I think it's a question for the room. I think as well. Is if that's something that people want. Because I know some people are funny about sort of clackers and horns and flags of various sizes in things. So it's one of those ones that I think is actually obviously we had the fan survey the other week about safe standing. I think actually safe standing is a big part of that as well, of creating an atmosphere in the stadium. And I think again it's something that we could potentially go out with a survey to ask people that sort of questions, because we want to make sure we get it right. And there's two bits to that, I guess, with the younger kids, because there's the actual sort of during the match, having the ability to sort of articulate themselves as as supporters, but actually off the pitch, what more we can do. I'd love to have like a family area where they had all kinds of things. It would be brilliant. And it's not to say that's not impossible. As I said, we are looking at some pretty interesting match day plans at the moment, and I hope that will revolutionise the way things happen. So that may give us the opportunity to do more in that field, but certainly I want to create that for younger fans, absolutely. But I can't promise we can do everything right now. But certainly I think it's something that everyone should have a discussion about. Do we feel that we need more of that? Like I said, the first thing was safe standing, and that was quite interesting. I guess while you're here, we could probably share some of the results from those findings, and it was probably in line with what we were anticipating, which is great. But we sort of had it confirmed effectively. It was, 70%?
It was a significant number of fans. I think we had about 2,700 people complete the survey, which was really good to start with. But a significant number of those people said that they want to see safe standing at Meadow Lane. Not necessarily where they sit, but the respondents who sit in the COP, it was pretty overwhelmingly in favour of it going into the COP. It was also interesting to see that some fans in the family stand, which may resonate with you, but also the pavers stand would migrate to the COP for safe standing if it was there, which could be conducive, I suppose, to more people who want to sing and clap and contribute to the atmosphere in that way, congregating together potentially in the COP and creating a better atmosphere in terms of vocal support. So very, very interesting findings, and I guess we'll keep you updated on our plans on that, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got to do the work on that, and obviously more importantly, understand what the cost would be to do that. But again, it's something that the SAG are looking to do, and that's up and down the country. That's all clubs throughout the country that they want. They want to bring in safe standing as a way to deal with persistent standing in stadiums. All stadiums have that as an issue, and it's always the main grinding point between SAG, police and the club. It's always make your fans sit down, make your fans sit down. It's an impossible task. Having the safe standing enables you to allow people to stand and create a great atmosphere. So if we can do it, we want to make it happen.
Do you have any other questions, or was that everything for you?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Great, we'll come over to this gentleman to your left, please.
I currently have a parking pass on Meadow Lane. With all the developments going on, what's the long-term future of that, and is there any plans in place to replace it going forward, close to the ground?
Big car park.
The big one across the road here, yeah, next to 200 Coffee.
Yeah, I mean we've got it on. We've just signed another licence, haven't we? At least for how much longer, Dave? Is it next June? I thought it was June after. I thought we had another year after this. No. It might be I can't remember exactly. We signed another extension. We don't know what's going to happen to that. Interestingly, we have had conversations. This is obviously a very interesting area where we're sat right now. So the council have obviously have their waterside. This is the waterside regeneration zone, and they, I've had a read through it. I've looked at what they're looking to do in terms of sort of mixed use, residential, different types of housing. It's a very, for us to be right in the middle of it is actually really quite exciting. Can we really position ourselves at the core of what happens here as a catalyst for development in the area? And obviously parking is one of those, but you're always fighting against the council who don't want to encourage cars. Most councils up and down the country are trying to discourage people in cars, from a green point of view. So it's always a tricky one. They know they need parking, but we're in that sort of tipping point where they're sort of trying to say, well, no, you should put some bike sheds instead, which never get used. But yeah, you should put the bike sheds instead. So they're still learning. Ultimately, it's going to be more about charging points probably down the line than anything else. But as for the future of that plot, we're not totally clear, but we know losing it would be detrimental. So obviously we want to maintain, not ownership, but lease of that site for as long as possible, and actually look at potential other ones that might become available, because we're going to have to find alternative provision if that does go. So parking is, it's an interesting business proposition, isn't it? Sometimes build a multi-storey and you can make quite a bit of money. So who knows?
Thanks for your question. On the subject of parking, we've got a man with some inside knowledge on parking at AFC Wimbledon, which might come in handy for some of you today.
There isn't any.
So,
Again, we weren't allowed. So, yeah, there's very, very little.
So what would be your
Very
advice
little.
if you drive into the game Saturday? This is coming
If you-
from the chief exec who helped build the new plough lane. What would be the advice?
Come by train. Definitely, yeah, it's very tricky. You can find some if you come early enough. There's a road called Waterside Way, where if you get there early enough, you can park down the end, but that'll go quick. So yeah, it's very limited. So definitely Earlsfield, walk down, loads of shops on the way. It's great.
Speaking of very limited, tickets are nearly sold out, I think, 1,200. So if you haven't got it yet, get on with it. Otherwise you might miss out. Anybody else for a question? We're coming towards the end, but we'll go to this side, please, Charlie. Probably about 5-10 minutes left, guys. So if you do have a question, put your hand up in the next round.
Hi, my question's about facilities in the COP for ladies. Statistically, more women go to football matches now, and the ladies' toilet facilities in the COP are absolutely disgusting. And there's also no disabled toilet. I've always sat in the COP, but I now sit in the Derek Pavis stand due to my disability, and the facilities there are so much better. And I was just wondering if you've got any plans to upgrade the toilets. Often there's seats coming off. It's just not a nice experience for women at all. And I'm sure anybody else that sits in the COP that's female would agree with me.
I've not been in the ladies' toilets, thankfully.
That's not true.
Shut up. No, so but I can imagine. So they're pretty bad. Okay, fair enough. No, well, I'll look at that. Like I said, I've not seen them, but I can imagine they're not. Yeah. Okay. Maybe. Is it an issue with the number of toilet cubicles as well? It's just the quality of they're just not nice. Fine.
Quality, and they just need upgrading terribly.
I think the whole stand needs upgrading, to be honest.
But the ladies' toilets, and there's no. And there's no disabled toilets. If you're disabled and you want to go to the toilet, you have to go to the gate and request to be let through to the Derek Pavis stand to be able to then walk all the way to the other end of the ground to go into the two disabled toilets that are there.
Yeah, that's a really so again another really difficult stand, isn't it? You know, from that point of view, because obviously disabled seating is obviously on the pitch side effectively, and you can't get into can't go into the Cyril. So yeah, it's not an easy one.
Everybody that's disabled needs a wheelchair or a ramp. Like me, I've got a stick, and it can be quite difficult at times. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. Anybody else? Yes, we'll come to this gentleman at the front, and then is it Alex over there I saw with the hand up? As usual, good to see. Yeah, but we'll come to the front first, please, Faye.
Hi, this is for Luke, really. What's the biggest difference between the National League and the League Two, would you say?
Question, I would say probably there's an increase in quality of the opposition, and there's probably the biggest increase is the physicality. I think the opposition are able to stay physically competitive for 90 minutes. I think often we got to an hour, and our opponents last season just couldn't cope after an hour, and I think we were able to coast for 30 minutes or more last season in far too many games, and it's probably taken us a while to adjust to the fact that we have to play football well for 90 minutes now. And I think that's evident. Like, we've scored the most goals in the first half of any team in the Football League, but then our second half performances have not backed that up enough, I think, and yeah, we're adapting to the fact that we have to play against teams that can physically keep trying to shut us down and keep recovering, and then have the energy to run forward and counter on us. I'd say they're the biggest noticeable difference for me. and yeah, of course there is a bit more quality. I don't think there's a huge step up in the quality over the whole league, but the top end there's a lot of quality there.
Thank you. Alex, do you want to raise your hand so Faye knows where she's heading?
Okay, so obviously everyone's aware of the publicity surrounding Wrexham, our main National League rivals and still rivals in League Two. So I'm just wondering, what do you think of all the publicity Ryan and Rob bring to Wrexham? Do you think it's good? Are you glad Notts don't have that level of publicity?
Yeah, I think that they're very, very smart. I'm not sure how much money they've actually put into the club. I think money goes to money. I think they're very, very good at generating huge sums to run that club. I think they've been quite upfront. I don't know if anyone's seen the documentary, but they've been quite upfront in terms of, like, if they didn't get promoted, it would have been a completely unstable football club, because I imagine many of the contracts that they signed with sponsorship were heavily dependent on them being promoted. And I think probably Ryan had to make their pool free because of our performances last season to generate some more income. So, but I think it's exciting for people. I think it shone a light on the National League. I think they've brought that glamour to League Two as well, and so on. Is that good? I don't know. I'd rather them than us. I prefer how we are. You know, we're a football club first. You know, and a little bit of a razzmatazz. You know, we have our Didsies and our Johnny Bostocks and whatever. But I think maybe there's a tipping point where they can potentially become. You know, they can become an entertainment. You know, and a football club second. And I think there's a balance there. I think they're doing it very well, because I think they're still. The heart, I think, is still there of the club. It's still a football club, but I think it's a fine line. Before, you know, you're not winning games, but you know, you've got Hollywood stars turning up to the racecourse every week and whatever, and then I think it starts to go the other way, where it starts to look a little bit ridiculous. But no, I think they're managing it brilliantly, to be fair to them, and certainly wouldn't want to be involved in that. But yeah, good luck to them.
Yeah, I'll just add on that as well. I think, you know, certainly from our point of view, you know, whatever they're doing, there is a very positive impact, you know, for us. You know, positive impact in the fact that Notts County as a brand is being seen on one of the biggest, you know, docu-series on the planet, and it's we've got to utilise that. We've got to look at what that represents to us as an opportunity. You know, regardless of whether we think it's right or wrong, or whether we want to be like that, there's a great window at the moment for us, you know, they create a lot of noise. I mean, you know, obviously before the game, obviously the idea that Taylor Swift was coming in to buy the club, as nice as that was, you know, we had what, 2 million hits, you know, as a result. You know, just one little tweet like that, or one thing can have a massive impact on us, and it's great because our name gets out there again. And it's interesting, because I obviously sort of talk to my kids, and I grew up obviously not as a county fan, but I knew about county, I knew its history, I knew what it had done. But my kids, they were like, "Who's Notts County?" They don't know, and so, you know, this is a great opportunity. Things like this, where they do resonate with. When they're looking at what Ryan Reynolds tweeting, suddenly brings exposure to us again, to another new, younger audience. So there's a lot of opportunities for us, and I think we've got to embrace it while we can. How long it's going to last for over there, who knows? But there are opportunities there, and certainly we're looking at the moment at what that actually represents. You know, we're doing an evaluation to look at what exposure we get from We Are Wimbledon, and obviously that can help us commercially, help us with new fan groups, in many, many different ways. So it's great. It's great for League Two, as Luke said. You know, it's shone a great spotlight on a global level onto, you know, a fourth tier of football in a country. So there's a lot of positives to take from it, and we definitely need to.
Got time for a couple more if there are any. Okay, there's a few. Okay, we'll go. Just this gentleman with the pen in his hand first, please, Faye.
Thank you very much. May I first thank the Board of Directors and all the members of staff for all the hard work that has gone into this club over the past 3 years. It has put us into a position that we could only have dreamed about only a short time ago. We could have not have done it without Luke and his coaching staff and the players that we have at this club, all working tirelessly together as a team on a mission to get this club where it belongs in the hierarchy of the Football League. But there is still work to be done. As far as the work club is concerned, how do we turn Nottinghamshire black and white? We need to get more families visiting the games. This could be done by visiting the schools and inviting the children to a game along with their parents. It could partly fill of the Jimmy Simmel stand, and they would obtain an experience that they would never forget, and hopefully would be asking their parents for further visits. I hope you will look at that option. I've been asked by many elderly residents, which has already been said, that some areas of the ground are experiencing difficulty. They are experiencing difficulty in climbing the stairs into their seats because they do not have any handrails. It's great news that we're looking at this, and I hope that things will be done very, very shortly. Now we come to the playing side. Once again, I've been talking to a lot of supporters recently who are wondering if more players are to be brought in at the January window. We seem to have many injury problems to key players, so we probably do need a few more players, and I've just wondered what Luke thought about that. We're also having a situation where people are saying to me we could do with a striker with a strong heading ability in the window. Somebody like Stockport's Carl Wotton, who of course used to play here for a number of years and was very, very good. I just wondered what you thought about that. And as I say, my final point is, do you think, Luke, that a back three is still the best way of defending for Notts County? Thank you.
Okay. I think to answer the question about a striker, I think we have the best attacking players in terms of numbers in the league at the moment. I think that yes, we probably need to look at strengthening the squad in Jan because we suffered some injuries. We still practice quite a bit in a back four in training. The most obvious problem that we have in a back four is that we lose a player in attack and we struggle to create chances. I think although we had a weakened side out really against Lincoln was the last time I very quickly went to a back four after we conceded an early goal, and from that point on I think Lincoln barely kicked the ball, but we just could not create enough openings because we lost you remove an attacking player to put him in the back line, put it as simply as that. And I think without that extra player in attack, we're not quite as potent. But we still practice in a back four. We prepare a lot. We often have a week of training where we play in a back four and revisit the key principles about defending and building up in a back four. And so we're ready to go to that if if we suffer more injuries and the most obvious formation for me to pick is to play a back four. That's why we practice it. But at the moment, I think the back three, we played a back three for pretty much the entire season last season. 107 points, the most goals in the country, fourth least conceded goals in the whole country, and we continue to play a back three more often than not. We're third. And we're scoring a lot of goals. So on the balance of things, I'm happy enough to to set up more often than not with like a 3-4-3 type of formation that we see a lot. But yeah, we're always ready. We practice, like I say, we prepare. So I think we can go to that if need be, if the personnel is perfect for that.
Thank you very much. We are running over, so if anybody wants to walk out, we won't be offended if you've got a taxi or a lift waiting for you. But we'll try and rattle through all the remaining questions. Can you put those hands back up? Who's still got a burning query? Right, so we'll work from right to left. So the gentleman at the far end there, please, Faye.
Just a question to each of the members of the panel. We've heard some really encouraging, joined-up thinking tonight. I think it's really comes across. I'm just interested to know if you each had one priority that you could address in the next 12 months, what that would be.
I'd quite like to get promoted. It was quite fun last time. I enjoyed myself very much. So I'd like to do that again. I've probably stolen his now.
No. No, I think for me, the training facilities like we spoke about earlier, and I know that's not a quick fix, and I know that it's something that we are really working on. But for the day-to-day, to try and improve our productivity, I would like really desperately to have a training, not just the training pitches, but also to have a facility at the training pitches, so we don't have dead time in between. And also I think maybe one of the reasons that the stadium is becoming tired more quickly is because of the amount of use that it gets. We're here day in, day out, and as far back as I can talk to anybody, the players have always reported here, trained here, rehabilitation here, recovery stuff here. I think it would help us if we were relocated to a purpose, designed training facility. So for me, is that one. I'm not blaming anyone or putting more pressure, because we are working on it and it's very difficult, but that's the one that I want. It's on my Santa's list.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I was about to say that as well. No, I wasn't. For me, that's a really difficult question, but I would say ultimately my main priority and challenge is the sustainability one. It's getting to a point of sustainability. And obviously there's a lot of priorities that you have in order to get to that. But the reason for doing that is, yes, it brings security, but when you're sustainable and you maybe start looking at profitability, then you can do everything. Then you can do all these wonderful nice to haves and create really fantastic, because you stop worrying about the financial situation because you're healthy. So for me, that's my priority.
Great question. Thank you. Anybody else on this side as we come over here? Yeah, gentleman down the front here, please. Just here, Faye, at the front.
Right, we've made some fantastic signings this year, absolutely brilliant. But how hard was it to get Didsey?
Yeah, some bits of it were challenging. He really wanted to come, I think, is the truth of the matter, and he could have taken far more money elsewhere. I don't think it's remiss for us to say that. Luke and I met with him a few months ago, and he expressed his desire to be here. This is where he grew up. This is where he wanted to finish his career. I think it'd been an ambition for a long time for him. So he was here for all the right reasons, and as I say, he made some sacrifices to come here. But yeah, we still had to persuade him. Yeah, Luke had to persuade him.
No, I think he is incredible. By the way, I know we're all aware of that, but he is just out of this world. Like he came in to see me in my office last season, and we're chatting, and I'm pretty sure, I don't know 100%, but I'm pretty sure Didsey would have signed for us if we lost in the playoff final, and he would have played in the National League for us. Yeah. And he's out of this world, like, and like the players, I think some of the lads are still pinching themselves, and he's, yeah, exactly. No, he's incredible, and he's an absolute joy to, when I was thinking earlier about some of the questions earlier when we're talking about, like, for example, we had a great question about personality of players, and is that something that you can recruit for? We had a question about physicality. Dizzy's got everything, and that's why Dizzy played in the Premier League. He's a Premier League player because he's a bull of a man. He's got feet of a ballerina. He's an unbelievable guy. He's making us all feel stupid, really. So, no, I think that look, I'm lucky enough because I sit there, meet Dizzy, we have a nice chat about football and how much he loves the club and what I'm trying to do, and Dizzy's like, yeah, I want to come and play. So for me, it's like, brilliant, okay. And then Rich has to do the hard bit to try to make it an actual reality. So it was all driven by him. That's the reality. And I think, like, we hear so many things about footballers, you know, like, he's sold out and, you know, they're not playing for love anymore. They're this, that and the other. He just destroyed all of that. And he's the real deal. Like, this is properly his club. So I can't really talk more highly of him. Absolutely.
Anybody from the middle part of the room? Last chance for you guys. And now I'm scanning to the left. And we've got another one over here. And I think this will be our last question. Anyone on the right have one? Last chance? Okay, last question of the night then.
Hi again. It's just a quick one about ticketing and ticketing for premium matches. For example, the match against Wrexham last season. It was very disappointing because the way it was done, there were a lot of people that went to every single away match for years and years, and I'm talking like 10, 15, 20 years, that didn't get a ticket. But there were people that had never been to an away match that got a ticket for the match. Is there any way that you can look at maybe already strategies in place where you can look at and see who's been to all the away games so that they can be guaranteed more or less a ticket rather than it just be a lottery? For example, like allocating so many tickets to each coach because they would know who goes to every game, like the OSA and the original supporters club and the other coach that goes. I just didn't know whether you could maybe do that, look at doing that in future.
It's a complex one. Because what we're finding at the moment is obviously a lot of clubs want to sell the tickets themselves, so you don't necessarily have the data, and that would require us to sort of then supply the data to them to sort of lock out people, and again that you're relying on another club to do that for you. So
about the tickets where Notts County are selling them here,
right?
Like for the Wrexham match, Notts County sold the tickets, and the priorities were you had to be a season ticket or an official supporters association member or a Lifeline member. But then they didn't really think about the people that went to every single away match and had been going for. Like,
no, obviously having because we don't have a loyalty system at the moment, I guess, in place. And as I mentioned to you, you know, digital and data transformation is a key part of that. So we've just done our sort of discovery phase of that with a consultancy, and obviously we then have to look at whether this is something that's, you know, easy for us to do without creating an absolute resource, you know, nightmare. Particularly when you're doing something manually and someone gets it wrong and someone misses out, it's a disaster no matter what. So you've got to find a robust way of doing it. It's not to say we won't, but at the moment I don't know, because I don't know exactly what happened with Wrexham last year. But what I'm saying is, in theory, it's possible, but we've got to go through this process of data transformation, looking at loyalty programs as a core part of it. Yeah.
It's about when cup tickets go on sale and things like that. Previously, I know sometimes season tickets get first options at purchasing a ticket, but they no longer hold their season ticket seat for them. So I've seen people on Twitter and Facebook complaining that they've not been able to get their own season ticket seat because somebody else has taken it. And I just wondered why they took away the option of getting your own seat for a few days prior to them going on general sale. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I think I could probably answer that. If you're talking about recent cup matches, it's because certain stands have been closed. So, for example, the upper cop's been closed, the family stand's been closed, and therefore we can't offer all season ticket holders their usual seat, and it would be unfair to offer other people in, even when stands have been closed. Right, okay, well...
From this season, I was just wondering why that's been done when it's always been the case.
Jordan, is that accurate, would you say?
I do actually understand that. I mean, I always manage to get my seat because I go straight away and order it. But it's a bit unfair to older people that don't have internet access and things like that. And they can actually end up having to get a seat higher up or whatever.
It is a difficult one. I mean, I think the other thing you've got to look at is if we're only opening one stand, you've also got to try and optimise the people in that stand. And if the season ticket holders bought their own seats, you'd have families that probably couldn't sit together because you create lots of gaps, and actually you want to be able to fill it in an optimal way that everyone can sit together. So I think that's certainly the view I've had in the past, is that we want to optimise people within the stand, that everyone can be next to each other. And it's a sort of sacrifice that we all make in order to all fit everybody in the stand and everyone to be together. I think people would prefer that, to sit with their families and friends, you know, rather than sort of have someone here and someone 3 blocks away. Yeah. Okay. Okay. No, we'll need to. Well, like I said, we'll need to look at how we can make that, you know, older season ticket holders more aware of that they may not be in their normal regular seat. You know, we need to do a better job of that then. Yeah.
It's all an ongoing process, and this is obviously, I think what you've heard from Joe tonight probably illustrates the fact that it's still very much a transitional period for the club. I mean, I've worked here since 2016. A lot of things are changing. A lot of exciting things are happening, but you know, we would always ask for patience from fans. We're obviously adapting to a new league. Luke's spoken about it on many occasions. It's the players are having to adapt and get used to new surroundings. We as the staff are also adapting to new surroundings, working under new sort of philosophies with Joe. But what I hope tonight's done is illustrated some of his hopes for the future. And obviously, it's always fascinating to hear from Luke, and also great to hear some ideas from Rich as well. So I'd like you to join me in giving the panel a massive round of applause. Huge thanks to everybody for coming. Thank you to everybody watching on the stream as well. Stephen, how many people do we have watching tonight? About 650, 700 at one time. So it's massive interest in what's going at Notts, and let's keep it that way. Thank you. See you all at Wimbledon.
Okay, thank you.